recording. So you see this right here, start recording now. That's because sometimes I forget to hit that button that makes sure that this webinar is actually recorded. So just like I tell you all to make a checklist to help you remember what things not to forget, strategy, I do it too. We're all human, right? So is everybody ready and excited to begin? How do you guys feel today? It's some of you it's early morning, some of you it's a different time. How does everybody feel? All right, very good, very exciting. So I have a lot to show you today. We're going to talk about some interesting questions today. Remember, today we deal with the summary question, we deal with an inference question. So let's go ahead and begin. First thing I want to do is tell you that this is Meeting Mastery Part 3 of 3, right? So this is going to be the last in the series, and for those of you who attended each webinar, I really hope that you find it helpful or you found it helpful. So first, of course, as we always begin, this is what we kind of come into as sometimes when we start studying, right? We have this expression of frustration. So our goal is to make sure to get rid of this. How do we get rid of this? Always in the same way. Always take a practice TOEFL whenever you need to assess yourself, either from our program or anywhere else. Always determine your need. This changes week by week. How are you improving? Choose one main source. The reason why I say this is, as always, a lot of students bounce around. So I think when you do that, you get different tips, different strategies. Unless you're compiling them all together and creating your own, it's going to be confusing. So stick with it and add to it. I was really happy. I had a student who was part of the two 12-week programs. He was with me for a long time. He got his scores. He went from a writing 19 to a writing 28, from a speaking, I think it was 18 to a speaking 28. But it took him a lot of effort and a lot of work, but he stuck with it. So you do too. You will improve every score, including the reading, which is what this is all about. Schedule your TOEFL after you feel that you have achieved a level that you're ready to take it and get your score, and then you will succeed. It might take you a couple of tries, but you will. Because remember, whoever fails to plan plans to fail. And the reason why I say this so consistently is because your success is the most important thing here. So we want to make sure that we do it the right way. Does that make sense, everybody? Yeah? Yes, yes. Ah, there you go. There's a little delay there. All right, so let's go ahead and review. So if you remember, for those of you who were in webinar number 2, we learned a couple of words. For those of you who missed it and who didn't see the video, which is already uploaded in your reading programs, I'm sorry, let's review. We have 7 verbs that we learned, 7 words, I'm sorry. Domesticate, forage, scatter, sweltering, excavate, carbonize, tamped. Now, why are we reviewing? Why in webinar number 3, class number 3, am I reviewing the vocabulary words in number 2? Can anybody type in and tell me why we review? What does review create? Starts with an M. Everybody, what's the number one thing that I think I say more and more and more than anything else? There we go. Right? Pratik had it well. Mastery. So that is what creates mastery. So this image right here, what does this image represent? So one of those words is represented by this image. So what word? Anybody? There we go. We got a lot of people. Carbonize. Hong, very good job. Very good. So carbonize. Now let's go to the next image. Okay, so carbonization is when something basically turns into rocket. The carbon makes it black, right? We talked about an example about overcooking food in a barbecue. What about this? What does this dog represent? This man and this dog. What word does that represent? Good. Come on, everybody. I want you to type in, get active, get aggressive, start learning. Very good. Great job. So, Wakiko, great. Domesticate, right? To make fit for human use, to be connected with human use. What about this? These little dots here, what does that represent? What vocabulary word? Excellent. So Akbar, great job. This is scatter, spread across, spread throughout, right? Remember what we talked about before. It's a very good way to learn vocabulary. Go to Google Images, search the vocab word only, and you'll see a bunch of images pop up. Choose one that represents it well, and you have an excellent flashcard system that's not quite boring and puts an excellent image in your brain for how to learn vocab. What about this guy? How does he feel? What kind of environment is he in? Very good, very good. Sweltering, sweltering. So good job, Fang. Great. Sweltering. So it's extreme, incredible heat, right? Like boiling hot. What about this guy? What's he doing? I guess you could say many things, but what do you think he's doing? Come on, everybody, type it in, write it in. So Minu, good job. Very good. Oops, actually not quite. Almost Minu. Anila got it. Forage. He's foraging. Forage means searching for food or going into the forest searching for something. So this image really puts that in your brain. What about these people? What are they doing? What word do we use? Come on, everybody. Very good. We have a couple of different words, but Hanan, you got it. Very good. Excavate. What about this one? This one's kind of a unique one. This one you might read when you buy a cup of coffee or you buy, I'm sorry, coffee grounds, or you're kind of learning how to create some kind of tea or who knows what. Very good, very good. So Arash got it. Tamped. So tamp is when you kind of press down on something to even out the surface and to tighten it up. Well done, everybody. Well done. Those are our 7 words. Did everybody like that review? Did you feel that using the pictures was a little bit more helpful? So use it too. Use it too. So Pratik, I like your energy. I love your energy. It comes over even in the chat. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So how are we going to practice today? Well, as always, you want to write down the number of the question that you're working on. You want to write down the question type because we're going to do the reading questions now. You want to write down your answer and you want to guess when you're not sure, right? I'm going to move the actual questions on the screen. Sorry for that noise. So that's going to force you to move forward. But on the test, remember, a lot of you have trouble with timing. There is no trouble with timing. Timing is a choice. Remember that. We follow our strategy. We have 20 minutes for each reading, 1 minute to read the first sentence of every paragraph, 6 minutes and 20 seconds to deal with questions 1 through 5, 6 minutes and 20 seconds to deal with questions 6 through 10, and 6 minutes and 20 seconds to deal with 11 through 14. So 11 through 14 get more time. If you remember, most questions get 1 minute and 16 seconds. These get 1 minute and 30 seconds because they're a little bit more difficult. What you have to do is remember, you don't choose an answer when you feel you have the answer. You choose the best answer or you guess when it's time to move on. That is time management. And for those of you who are learning, that means a lot of times you're not going to be comfortable choosing the answer. But if you follow strategy, you will be led to it more often. Does that make sense about timing, everybody? Yes, no, go ahead, type it in. Remember, timing is a choice. I hope very much so that nobody in this class will email or will wonder or will tell me that they have trouble with timing. It's okay not to choose an answer perfectly when time is up, but you have to choose and move on. I hope that makes sense. So Letha says, yes, but I am not able to apply it. Well, if it makes sense, you choose not to apply it. So remember, timing is a choice. You just have to get comfortable making the right choice. So let's go ahead and say one more quick tip. You know, in the questions in the chat box, everybody understands that's where we go ahead and communicate with one another. Follow strategy precisely. Remember that, everybody. Determine the question type, remember the strategy from the 3-step program and from what you've learned from Noteful, and follow it step by step. Is everybody going to do that today? We have an interesting question. I think it was because I reviewed vocabulary. Yes, this is a different class. This is the last in the series. All right, everybody. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to do some example reading questions. We're going to have 1 minute and 30 seconds to choose an answer to each. So get your thinking hats ready because here come the questions. So here's number 1, everybody. Go ahead and begin. I'll give you 1 minute and 30 seconds. Okay, choose your answer. Next question, 1 minute, 30 seconds. All right, moving on to the next one. 1 minute, 30 seconds. All right, choose your answer. Now, this is the summary question. Now, what I want you to do is I know there's a bunch of words up here. These are your answer choices. Remember, you have to choose 3 out of 6 to complete a paragraph that summarizes the reading. This may be hard for you who haven't been to every class, but most of you have. Here are the first sentences of each of the 6 paragraphs. Just do your best. Okay, everybody? 1 minute and 30 seconds. All right, choose your answers. Now, very quickly, can everybody hear me? Go ahead and type yes if you can hear me. All right, very good. You guys took a second to do that. I was a little bit worried. So this is a little bit weird. It's actually very hard to put question number 14 up here because of the fact that it has so much text and I want to make sure you can read it. So remember, you had to choose 3 out of 6 that summarize the reading, and these are the first sentences of each paragraph to help you. So now for the fun part. Let's review. Who thinks they did perfect? Who thinks they did perfect? Go ahead and type perfect if you think you did perfect. I got a lot of me's. I get some perfects. All right. I like that. That's a fantastic energy and enthusiasm. So, number 11. Who remembers what kind of question number 11 was? Very good. It was a vocab. Pretty basic. Remember our strategy. If you know the word, follow the 2 steps below. Choose the answer or answers that match the meaning you know best, because sometimes you'll have more than one. Read the sentence with the highlighted vocabulary word to check your answer. If you don't know the word, read the sentence with the word and guess what its meaning could be. Then choose an answer that fits this meaning best. If more than one works, guess fast. Everybody knows this. This is the third time we're looking at this slide. Why am I repeating it? Why am I making you, a student who's already learned it, hear me say it one more time? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So as Arash said, mastery, right? Mastery. And as many of others have said, like Raquel and Radwa. So when we look at this question, what we see is that it says the mechanics of producing a reliable, expandable food supply had been mastered. So the mechanics had been mastered. So what can be mastered? Can procedures be mastered? Yes. Can knowledge be mastered? Yes. Can we say equipment is mastered? What do you think, everybody? Yes or no? Can you say equipment is mastered? Not really. I mean, only if you refer to the knowledge of using the equipment. What about importance? Can importance be mastered? Can I say that? The importance was mastered? No, so you should be able to eliminate C and D, but A can work and B can work. So if you don't know the word, you have to make a choice, 50 out of 50. The actual choice is procedures. So I was actually supposed to make both of these gray so they disappear, but oops. So procedures turns out to be our answer. Does that make sense, everybody? A, apple. Good. Does everybody see that I changed the check mark? Do you remember how I made the check mark appear before? Do you remember that? Very good. It was fire. This is a comment. Which one do you like better, this one or the previous one? For those of you who remember. Oh, wow, everybody likes this one? A couple of you like the fire. So I do this to see how attentive you are and things like that too, but I'm also curious. So if you don't understand that, you must build your vocabulary. Mechanics is kind of a basic word. Strongly recommend the 3-step vocab program if you don't already have it, or master 7 to 14 words a day. You have to. If you didn't get that one, unfortunately, we're in kind of a tough spot. Don't forget that when you learn the words, learn how to use the words, right? Don't just memorize the definition, or when you see it in use, you're not going to get it. And remember, as you saw us do with the first 7 words, build your picture reference, right? Print them out, make a big booklet. Let me know once you complete a good one. Does that make sense, everybody? All right, very good. So number 12. Who remembers what kind of question number 12 is? Very good, very good. It is a negative detail. So here's the strategy. Everybody listen along, please. Take notes. 1. Read the question to understand what information you are being asked to find. 2. Identify the keywords in the question to search for in the reading. 3. Start reading quickly from the beginning of the paragraph in search of the keywords or synonyms of them. 4. When you find the keyword, read the sentence to understand if what you learned answers the question or eliminates an answer. I have a little typo here, so let me fix that. Right, we all make mistakes. So there we go. Or eliminates an answer. 5, check the answer choices to determine which you can eliminate or which is the answer. And 6, continue to do this for each answer choice until you can determine which one is wrong or not mentioned and choose that answer. Does that make sense, everybody? Yes or no? Does that make sense? Great. So let's go ahead and take a look at the question. So everybody, when you look at number 12, what are we being asked about? The Olmec. There are a bunch of things that for this Olmec culture suggested a sharp break with village farming. What does that mean? If there's a sharp break, what does that mean? Can anybody give me a different word for what that means? Go ahead and type it in, please. A couple of you got it. A sharp break implies a sudden change. Something really different happened. So let's say with this webinar, well, what could we say this class right now? What could I do, or what could I do with this class right now where all of a sudden you'd say there was a sharp break in the class? What could happen? Give me an example. With this class right now, this reading class that you're a part of, give me an example of what would mean that here on this slide, Joseph had a sharp break. Good. Some of you are saying like no sound, losing the voice, right? You started to learn how to cook. I like that. I like that. That's a good one because it's the best one that shows this kind of dramatic shift. So, what are the key words? What are the key words in this question, everybody? What are the key words here? Olmec, correct, and sharp break. So we see in green Olmec, sharp break, village farming. You know, we read, we scan quickly. Remember, you don't read carefully every single word. You scan until you find your key words and then you read carefully. So here in this sentence, we see radical break, village farming, Olmec. We see all of our keywords in one sentence. So that's the sentence we read carefully. An early radical break with the simple village farming tradition of Mesoamerica occurred in the sweltering lowlands of the South Gulf Coast of Mexico with the group called the Olmec. Did we learn anything here about a radical break or a sharp break? No, we didn't. So what do we have to do? We keep reading. Remember, we follow strategy. You keep going from your keywords. So when we look, we see here, our sentence is in the middle of the paragraph, right? That's where I took it from. Remember, you scan, you read careful, you read quickly with energy, but you start focusing when you see your keyword. Please follow the strategy. It doesn't give you the answer because you know what you're looking for. So you keep reading. And it says here, beginning at about 1000 BC, people built massive clay pyramids and platforms, right? Because an early radical break occurred. Here, beginning at about 1000 BC, people built massive clay pyramids and platforms. So what answer choice is that? Massive clay pyramids and platforms built. What answer is that, everybody? That's C. Scale of some construction projects, right? Because here you're telling me that there was a big break, a big shift, something new happened. And then you start telling me what happened. So the first thing I learned is C. That is not an answer, that is mentioned. So I keep reading. And then I read, so it disappears because that answer is not an answer choice that we must choose. We also learned that they lived in small town groups of hundreds or even thousands. Is that an example of a dramatic shift, everybody? Is that an example of a dramatic shift? Yes. Yes, it is, because remember, first they tell us there was a big shift, and then they tell us what it was. So what answer choice does this represent? Small town groups of hundreds or even thousands. Which answer choice, everybody? Everybody got it? A, the number of people. See how we match the color to help you see that? So 50-50, and that's really fast. So we keep going, and the next thing we learn is intensively farmed a variety of ecological zones. So let me ask you, everybody, what does that represent? Intensively farmed a variety of ecological zones. Come on, everybody. Okay, so Yang Hui, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, put a question mark, and I hope that's because he understands that, or what, yeah, I'm sorry, Yang Hui understands that this you can't really match. Does farmed a variety of zones mean produced a reliable food supply? Yes or no? If I had like farmed a variety of zones, if I say I worked at a variety of jobs, does that mean I was able to supply a reliable amount of income for myself? Is that what that means directly? That if I work a variety of jobs, I make a reliable amount of money? Yes, Arash, very good. He put down that it's an inference, but it is not a direct relation. So that does not appear. And those of you who think it represents B, well, let's keep reading. And produce what is one of the world's most valued examples of stone sculpture. World's most valued examples of stone sculpture. And that you see represents D. It's like a perfect connection. So the answer is actually B, because A, C, and D are mentioned. And for those of you who didn't think that thought D was mentioned, that was a mistake. Does that make sense, everybody? Good, but I want to show you something. There is an easier way. So I answered my own question. Now let's go ahead and review some basic grammar for this. So this is where we learn comprehension. So everybody, please pay attention, because I know it can be tough, but if you don't follow every word, I might lose you. If you remember, I created this slide, I think in the first class or the second class, I don't remember. And it's the use of the word as. So we have two statements. John built my house and John built your house. So how do we put those two pieces of information together with the word as? Can anybody type that in? So give me the as statement. What would I say if I want to have both of these pieces of information in this sentence? As something, John built my house. Give me the complete phrase. Very good. So excellent. So Lisa, very good job. Couple of you did it. As with your house, John built my house. So as shows similarity or difference. As shows similarity or difference. Very good. It shows similarity. So let's go ahead and check out what that means, right? As with your house, John built my house. And then if you remember from the last class, I had some extra pieces of information. So what does this mean? What is this for? Well, you remember how we talked about how, you see an early radical break here, right? So when we read that question, we start reading the paragraph quickly looking for our key words. So that means we read this first sentence. And the first thing we see is as in Mesopotamia, China, and elsewhere. So very quickly, who here is from China? Is anybody here from China? Yeah, we have a few students. Who here is from Mesopotamia? Does anybody know Mesopotamia? Okay, somewhat. All right. So anyway, as in means similar or different. We have a lot of people from a lot of different countries. Similar. Okay, so we're talking about similarity. So our brain already recognizes that. So we continue. And when we look at a sentence, what's the most important information in a sentence, everybody? Subject. What do we call it? Subject. What else? Verb and object. Very good. So we see that. The background was scatter. Subject, verb, object. The background was so as, like similar to these places, the background was scatter. But a scatter of what? Like scatter is like something spread out. What spread out? So we have to understand what that's saying. So we keep reading and we understand the connection. So a scatter of villages. Okay, so the background was scatter of villages. So villages spread throughout, just like the image we saw. Okay, but there's more information. In which, so we're talking about the village now. What about the village? Mechanics mastered. What mechanics mastered? Well, we know mechanics is procedures by now. Mechanics of what?
right? It's like scatter of what? Mechanics of what? We keep reading intelligently and seeing the connection of a food supply. Okay, so the background was a scatter of villages in which the mechanics of food supply was mastered. Now, mastering the food supply, is that something unique? Yes or no? Mastering the food supply, is that something unique? Yes or no? So I'm actually getting yeses and nos. The first word in this paragraph, everybody, what's the first word in this paragraph here? What's the first word in the paragraph? As. What does as mean? Similar or different? Similar. And we have more than two locations, right? So the background was scatter of villages in which mechanics of food supply mastered, right? So mastering the food supply. I didn't highlight Mesoamerica, but that's what we're talking about, right? Mexico, Mesoamerica, that was a whole reading. So we're talking about that there was the food supply was mastered, right? You can have a good food supply. Is that unique? Yes or no? Who else had that? Who else had that? No, it is not unique. Mesopotamia had that, and China had that. That's why we use the word as. Does that make sense, everybody? So this is similar. So if you look at the question, it says, each of the following aspects of the Olmec culture suggest a sharp break with village farming. If you're similar to everybody, if you're talking about that, right? Because you're talking about village farming, that's what everybody's doing, right? We're talking about the development of domestication. You know, you had read this, you have read many paragraphs of this. So that food supply, the ability to produce a reliable food supply, does that represent a sharp break? Yes or no? Does producing a reliable food supply? No, from this sentence, because who was doing it? Who was doing it? Who was producing a reliable food supply? Tell me one more time, please. Mesopotamia, China, kind of everybody, right? Many places. Can't say everybody, but we can say many places. So by reading the first sentence intelligently, we know that B is the answer because B actually is something that was not a break. It was a similarity. So you don't even have to read the other sentences before you know what your answer is. Does that make sense, everybody? Yes or no? Don't you think that's amazing? Who thinks that's amazing? Can we say I do? Very good, very good. Now, why am I doing this? I want to review this very quickly. This is one of the things that I really want to build. It's a challenge as an instructor to do this, but you see how we read step by step, but we read in groups? Like you see how this is the subject verb object, but there are all these other words in black around it. The goal is that as you read those black words, you don't get distracted from what the subject verb object is. Because a lot of you have trouble with your reading comprehension and listening because you're hearing each word individually and you're not kind of seeing the structure. That's why I wanted to do colors. And then as you continue to read, you see that the blue is connected to scatter, which is the object of the sentence. And then you continue and you see an adjective clause in which that's connected to village, which is talking about the scatter. And then you continue and you talk about the food supply, which talks about the mechanics, which is in the sentence because of that, villages. So you kind of follow along, but structurally, and you, in your brain, kind of identify these colors. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, now I forget who posted this question. I think it was Pratik. You're asking some great questions. So he's saying, or Pratik is saying, you are trying to say just read one sentence before the keyword which can answer the question, not can us to answer. Is that what I'm saying, everybody? Yes or no? I already typed the answer, but is that what I'm saying? No. What am I saying? If you just read with careful comprehension, you will find that all the answers get easier to solve. This is not a strategy. This is a reading comprehension building exercise. Does that make sense, everybody? Good, good, good. So we continue on, and I want to ask, did you understand this? If you didn't understand it, this is an easy to medium question. This is not a tough one. My goal is, do you see how review builds your comprehension, right? If you reviewed this many times, you would be able to identify, hey, this sentence kind of gives me the answer. So make sure you master your three-step reading program. Make sure that you don't review 50 readings one time. Make sure that you review one reading 50 times, because then you're going to get that. Then you're going to start seeing the colors. Then you're really going to start to build your reading comprehension. And I want to ask you a quick question, everybody. Just from that exercise alone, seeing the colors, subject, verb, object, seeing the connection, answer me honestly. It's okay if you say no. Did you already improve your comprehension? After this class, do you feel that you're already going to start reading better? Very good, very good. We have about 90% saying yes, 10% saying not sure, not so much. That's okay. But you see how since 90% of the class is doing that, my feeling is that you just need to watch that part of the video once I upload it a few times, and then it'll be better. So we continue. Number 13. Who remembers what number 13 was? Olga, I'm very happy. I started to understand. Remember your spelling, T-E-D. So 13 was an inference. So let's look at the strategy. Remember, identify the question type, look at the strategy. Read the question to understand what information you're being asked to find, of course. 2, identify the keywords in the question to search for in the reading. 3, start reading quickly from the beginning of the paragraph in search of the keywords or synonyms of them. 4, when you find the keyword, remind yourself of the question, right? Because you got to know what you're looking for, and read carefully to find the answer for yourself. Ask yourself, what does this imply that must be true, right? What does it imply? 60% of the answers will be found in the sentence with your keywords. 30% will require you to read one sentence more. 10% will require you to read two sentences more to find the answer. Those are very challenging questions. 5, once you've identified the answer in your brain from the reading, check the answer choices and choose the one that matches your anticipated. Anticipated means the one that you expect best. 6, if you don't find the answer right away, keep asking yourself, what must be true from this sentence that isn't stated directly? And number 6 happens because inference is tough. So here's the question that we all did. Now we understand the question. What is implied is the most important scholarly controversy about the Olmec. So what's another word for controversy, everybody? What's another word for controversy? Yeah, conflict, debate, contrast, argument. So we understand the question, right? What's important about some argument that was taking place between scholars? So what are our keywords, everybody? Type them in quickly. What are our keywords? Good. We have scholarly, controversy, and Olmec. Now, when we look at the reading, we see Olmec everywhere, every sentence. We see scholars in 2 sentences, and we see argued in only 1. So one sentence has 3 of our key words. So we read everything, we have to be careful, but this is the sentence that we focus on. So when we look at it, we see in blue the information that we need to understand. And this is a little bit tricky, but if you go back, you see how we have other scholars have argued convincingly. Well, you guys know from writing question number 2 that whenever we have this like other people think this, when we use the word other, what is that usually connected with? You know what I'm talking about? Like question number 2, blah, 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 people think this, other people think that. So what word do we usually have when we have other? It starts with an S. Nobody's getting it. Some, very good, Bianca. So if you look at this, some scholars believe this, other scholars believe that. So the argument is this contrast, right? Other scholars, however, have argued convincingly that the Olmec represent only one of several largely independent cases of the evolution of complex society. So what is the argument? Well, go to the sentence before, some. Now, a student might be asking, so I do have to read the sentence before? Don't forget that this is a reading. So you're reading from the beginning all the way through with an understanding of your question. You see the word scholars here, so that should alert you that that sentence might be important. So you start paying a bit careful attention. And when you get to the last sentence, which has all of your keywords, there's a connection, right? Others, however. You need to read the sentence before to understand the context of that because you're having this idea of some people think A, other people think B. That's the argument. That's the controversy. So we continue and we see that some scholars believe that the Olmec was the mother culture of all societies. And other scholars believe it was one of several independent cases. Is everybody kind of following along with me? Is everybody following along with me? Go ahead, type yes or no. Good, good. It's tough. Some of you put kind of, some of you put a little. So keep reviewing. It'll make more sense later. So what's the argument, everybody? What does mother culture mean? When we think mother, what do we think? What does a mother have? Mothers have what? Starts with a C. Starts with a C. Very good. Mothers have Briam. Good job. One of the things that mothers have, of course, children. So they're saying that the Olmec was the mother culture. So it created these other children. Like it created these other complex societies from its own influence. And then other people think, no, it was one of several independent cases. Independent. What does independent mean, everybody? Independent means what? Solo. Very good. A lot of people put that actually. Yeah, by itself. You by yourself, me by myself. I'm not your mother, right? That was the controversy. Does everybody understand that answer? That's the controversy. Does everybody get that? Yes or no? So we phrase the answer in our head before looking at the answer choices. And what answer fits? What answer fits everybody? 653 plus. I'm not sure what that means. So a couple of you are choosing some different answers. I'm a little bit surprised. Everybody should be able to identify C, whether or not all complex Mexican societies were derived from the Olmec, whether it was the mother culture or whether it was not the mother culture, right? Whether or not, yes or no. So C, we see the comment is our answer. Now, what about the wrong answers? This is where review comes in. Look at how it works. Look at the first sentence. Olmec, a name derived from the ancient American word for rubber, doubtless a reference to the rubber trees that grow in this area, but a name they themselves probably did not use. And then look at A. Is that a controversy, everybody? Is this a controversy? Are scholars debating this, yes or no? No, it is a fact. They don't know where it came from. That's not a controversy means an argument, a fight. I don't know what to eat. That's not a controversy. You want to eat chicken, I want to eat meat, and we're arguing. That's a controversy, right? So let's go ahead and see that A is not correct. Then we go ahead and look at this sentence. One of several largely independent cases of the evolution of social complexity. Now look at B. How the Olmec managed to remain independent. How is not a controversy. How? So they're saying, what's the controversy? How? The controversy isn't how. How is the way? So it's like, did we do it by being angry or did we do it by being happy? How did we do it? That's not the focus, right, everybody? Does everybody understand that that's not correct? Now, I want you to also understand something. So first, how is incorrect. The controversy was whether, yes or no, not how. You don't answer a how question with yes or no. Now, How the Olmec managed to remain independent. This answer choice assumes something. What does it assume? How the Olmec managed to remain independent. It assumes that the Olmec were what? Very good, Diego. Very good. Fast answer. It assumes that the Olmec were independent. Do we know that the Olmec were independent, everybody? Do we know that the Olmec were independent? Yes or no? Good. No, of course not. That's the controversy. Maybe they were the mother culture. So B is wrong for two reasons. And then we look here. Responsible. So remember, this is some people believe that the Olmec were responsible for transforming their neighbors by military, political, religious, or economic means into complex society. Do we know if the Olmec did that? Do we know if the Olmec used power to influence other cultures? Do we know that, everybody? Please type yes or no. Go ahead and type that in, yes or no. The answer is no. That's the controversy. Very good, very good. So look at D. Whether the Olmec used religion or military power to transform their neighbors. So what does D assume? Does D assume they were the independent case, or does D assume they were the mother culture? What does D assume? Mother culture or independent? Very good, very good. They assume that they were the mother culture. So Hong, it depends, but neither, not quite. So whether the Olmec used religion or military power are both connected with mother culture, because if they were the mother culture, we don't know if they were the mother culture. We don't know how they influenced other societies. Maybe they were nice, maybe they were mean, but we know that they did, right? So D assumes that they're the mother culture and we don't know which way they influenced others, but that's the controversy. So that's why you see these color relationships. So that's why I want you to review 50 times because I, as a teacher, can make these colors, but I wonder if you could. So you want to review it 50 times so you could, and that way you really build comprehension. And then you'll see C is the answer. Does that make sense, everybody? So Lala says, OMG, those colors. So I hope that means you like them. I hope that means that this helps you to identify the connections and relationships a little bit easier. So what happens if you don't understand? Now, some of you said that this might be medium or hard. To be honest, this is an easy question. If you know strategy, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% easy, but compared to other questions from my experience, it is. So you shouldn't have missed this one. So be careful. Master your three-step reading program and review one reading 50 times, right? So Lydia asked a quick question. Can I upload everything? Of course. Now that we have the whole series, I'm going to upload the reading and everything together, but everyone here should know and see that the readings are connected with the classes, but now you're going to get the whole thing. Now we move on to the most fun question of all, question number 14. Now remember everybody, this is a class that you're going to have a recording of that you can review more than once. So I'm going to go through this like I've gone through other questions, but some of you might get a little bit lost. I'm going to do my best so that you don't, but if you do, that just means that you need to review because you can't follow me that easily on the first try. So that means that you should review one reading 50 times. Does that make sense, everybody? All right, very good. Let's go ahead and get started. The 14th question, as always, is the summary question. So here's summary strategy. So please follow along with me. Take notes. Close your eyes if you need to. Listen carefully. 1. Review the structure of the reading on your own, in your brain, by reminding yourself what each paragraph was about. 2. Read the summary question carefully and see if the sentence in bold gives you a clue as to what the answer choices might be. 3. Read your first answer choice to understand what it states and find its key words. 4. Scan through the reading until you find the keywords or synonyms of them and read the sentences they are found in. 5. Determine whether that answer choice is a summary, a detail, or wrong answer. Use the following method to do so. 6. After your analysis, you should be left with 3 summary answer choices. They will be your answers. 7. If you are left with 4 summary answer choices, read the sentence in bold in the question and eliminate the answer choice that doesn't directly deal with the topic sentence. 8. If you are left with 2 summary answer choices and 2 detail answer choices, read the sentence in bold in the question and eliminate one of the detail answer choices that deals with the sentence in bold least. Does that make sense, everybody? Yes or no? A lot of people say yes. I don't know if I believe you. That was pretty intense. I don't even know if I understand it perfectly. That's why I want you to review many, many times. Now let's review it in a way that might be a little bit clearer. Here you see an example reading, right? The black boxes show the paragraphs. The red line shows the first topic sentence. If you have an answer choice that deals with the information in the first sentence, the topic sentence, that summarizes and introduces the paragraph. That's good. If you have an answer choice that's in the middle of the paragraph or in the end of the paragraph, that's not necessarily an answer that summarizes the idea of the paragraph. Remember, the first sentence does that. So in general, green is good. If you have an answer that deals with the information represented by the green circle, good. Purple, not so good. Does that make sense, everybody? Good, good, good. Now we continue. If you have one answer that deals with the information in the first sentence, the topic sentence, and also information in the middle of the paragraph, you have a very good answer because that means it's really capturing the entire idea of the paragraph and working as a good summary. Wow. Okay, I want to go back. Muhammad asked a fantastic question. He says, what about the violet dot? So the violet dot is this little thing right here. That was just a mistake. But I love that level of attention. Okay, does that make sense, Muhammad? All right, very good. Very good eyes. I love that. So we continue. If you have one answer that deals with the first sentence of each paragraph, 2 different paragraphs, that is awesome. That means you have a powerful summary. That's an easy answer choice, and now it is great. So this is the basic breakdown of how to classify an answer as very good, good, great, or not so good. Now, here's something that you have to do. Let's be practical, everybody. This is a tough question, so you have to use all of your tools. Use your knowledge from answering the previous 13 questions to help you determine which answers are correct or not correct. Remember that 2 answer choices shouldn't talk about the same idea. So if answer choice B and C both talk about the same idea, only one of them will be correct because how can you summarize a reading if you're spending 2 answer choices talking about the same thing? Also, practically, we need to bring everything I told you together. And question number 14 really is a measure of your reading comprehension. The difficulty that you have with it after you especially see this class, study it carefully, and review step 3 is not a measure of how tricky that question is, but how strong your reading ability is. So if it's challenging, it means you haven't mastered the readings yet. These are the shortcuts. Everything I'm teaching you is in my opinion, as a teacher of almost 10 years now, from seeing many different instructors teaching many different ways, these are the ways that I think are the most meaningful. These are the shortcuts. Hard work is required, meaning I don't think there's an easier way than this. And if there is, then if you always follow it, you're likely to choose some wrong answers sometimes. So let's go ahead and continue. Let's bring it together. When you start analyzing, you should have noticed that A and B deal with similar information, maize and domestication, maize and domestication. So A and B are two answers and they talk about the same idea, but we should only choose one. So this comes from the first sentence of the second paragraph. And that sentence reads, the recent redating of some of the supposedly earliest domesticated maize in Mesoamerica to about 3500 BC. Just from looking at this, I'm not reading anything else. What do you think the answer is? A or B? Which one should I be choosing, everybody? A or B? Right? B, because it has the date. Just looks a little better. Doesn't mean you choose it. If you have no time, then you choose it. So two answers shouldn't talk about the same idea. So let's analyze. So now this is the whole paragraph, right? Paragraph 2. So we know that A and B come from the first sentence, and B looks a little better. If you keep reading and you keep looking, you see this sentence appears. Maize appears to have reached sufficient productivity to permit the village farming way of life soon after 2000 BC. And then look at B. It was productive enough to support a village farming way of life by about 2000 BC. And do you remember the picture I showed you earlier? This one? Oh, no, not this one. Yeah, this one, sorry. Right? B deals with the first sentence of the paragraph and the middle sentence of the paragraph. This is very good. Now, if you look at A, sorry, everybody. So I shouldn't have shown you that comment yet. I'm sorry. So if you look at A, and was cultivated in sufficient qualities to feed an entire population, complex societies soon began to develop. That's not correct. We didn't read anything about complex societies here, right? So that makes B our answer choice. Does that make sense, everybody? Very good, very good. So, what did we learn from this? We choose B and we eliminate A. Eliminate because two answer choices cannot talk about the same thing. So we continue and we look at C, D, E, and F. Now, the great thing is that this is not an easy reading. It really is kind of a hard one. But if you use your knowledge from answering the questions, if you're intelligent, if you're focused, and if you're answering correctly, remember this is a comprehension-based question, you're going to get the answer. Let's see here. Oh, okay. So don't worry about that. That slide shouldn't be there actually. That was a mistake. So if we look at C, right, it says the simple farming villages along the South Gulf Coast of Mexico were conquered in about 1000 BC by the Olmec, and most local traditions were destroyed. Do you remember this question? Number 13. Remember the controversy? Does everybody remember? Oh, I like Amir. That's fantastic. He says, totally wrong, because that was the controversy, right? We chose the answer C, whether or not the complex societies were derived from the Olmec. And we said D was incorrect. And when we look at C, conquered is the controversy. We don't know if that occurred. We don't know if they were independent or not. So we can eliminate C. Does that make sense, everybody? Yes or no? Go ahead and type it in again one more time. So we have one no. That's Jose. So, Jose, I'm going to repeat this. In question number 13, we were asked, what is the scholarly controversy about the Olmec? The controversy we identified was whether it was the mother culture and created all other complex societies, or whether it was independently a culture that had no influence on others. And we learned that if it were the mother culture, perhaps if it were the mother culture, it forced other cultures to follow by the use of military, politics, religion. We don't know. Now, that information we understood from answering 13. And if we go to C, C says it's a fact. The simple farming villages along the South Gulf Coast were conquered by the Olmec. But we don't know that. That's the controversy. Maybe they were the mother culture and conquered everybody else, or maybe they were independent. Does that make sense, everybody? All right, great. So even though we have a huge class, I'm still trying to identify, and a couple other people didn't get it. So always tell the truth in the chat. So we continue. Do you guys remember number 7? Question number 7? That was from the last class. And this asked us, which of the following statements about the earliest houses is true? And we learned that early houses, which were seldom larger than 4 by 6 meters. So we just learned a fact about the houses. Does that make sense, everybody? Good. So we learn a fact about the houses. They were not larger than 4 by 6 meters. And then we saw that D was correct for number 7. Look at D dog. Because the wattle and daub method was used in building virtually all houses in the early villages, the houses had to be kept very small. First of all, I don't know that this is considered small. I just know that it was 4 by 6 meters. Second, it's a fact. So this idea of because doesn't make sense. So D is what? Right or wrong, everybody? Very good, very good. So I'm not quite sure. I think it's Ronak. You're asking me, I want to know where is this comprehension on your website. So I'm not quite sure what you mean by comprehension because comprehension is knowledge. So there is no knowledge on the site itself, there's just content. So the videos, the reading, the strategy is on the 3-step reading program. So you'll find everything there. I hope that answers your question. If not, please type in a bit more detail and then I'll do my best to answer it. Now, Bianca asked an interesting question. Do we have to analyze the answers in order from A to E? I mean, one by one? Yes and no, right? You do have to look at them all, of course. But remember, for question number 14, you really have to bring everything together. Teaching this like one part strategy doesn't work. That's why I have like videos, classes, seminars, example reading, because you have to bring it all together. So let's look at another question. So D is eliminated. Remember number 12? What happened? Number 12 was about what occurred that showed that there was a sharp break, that Olmec became very different, and that it began at about 1000 BC, right? That's what we learned in answering number 12. In F, in answer choice F, so you see I skipped E because we're kind of going through it. E we really have no reference to. In about 1000 BC, the Olmec people went well beyond simple farming, building complex civilization with good-sized towns. So you see here, as in Mesopotamia, China, and elsewhere, so we have F. Is F correct? Yes or no? Is F correct? All right, it is correct. But hold on one second. So I'm going to answer complete Ronek's question. So she says she has complete TOEFL mastery. And how does she see this question? You're going to see it in a few days. You should see all the old questions and videos from class 1 and 2 under the reading. I'm sure you do. You'll see reading class 3 posted in a couple of days because it takes me time to process the video. I hope that answers everybody's question. So now, this answer is actually an example. Let's go all the way back. This is actually an example of the purple. The purple. Now, I didn't say purple was wrong. I said it was not good. So if we go all the way back down, we see that it comes from the middle of the paragraph, right? It was an important idea. I mean, I can get a little complex and show you that it is represented in the first sentences from just basic strategy though. F does come from kind of the middle of the paragraph. But we've eliminated A, C, and D, right? We've eliminated 3 answers. First, we eliminated A because A and B talked about the same information and B was better. Then we eliminated C and D from the information we learned from answering previous questions. And we know that F is okay, so we also know that B, E, and F are answers. I don't even understand E. I didn't even look at it, just kind of glanced over it, and I already have my answers. So this is where strategy comes in. But if you do have time, you want to check. So if we look at E, it says in the small early villages, Life revolved around hunting and raising various crops. But there were individuals or entire villages that became involved with specialized occupations. So we see that earliest villages occurs in the first sentence in a paragraph, and we see that we have that represented. And in the early villages, life revolved around hunting. So we have this. All villages probably grew, right? Revolved around hunting and raising various crops. So I should actually highlight that so you guys see the magic as it happens. Hold on one second here. I want to show it the best that I can to you. So you see, grew is connected with raising, and hunted is connected with hunting. So E comes directly from this paragraph, mainly the middle sentence. So it's purple, right? As we discussed before, answer choices, I believe E and F are purple, but all the other ones were wrong. So sometimes you will choose those. That's why I said not good, not the best in comparison with green. So purple is possible when, if there's no other choice, that was our example, and two, if you have two or more purples, then you check the main sentence. So what does that mean? It's not worth getting into because we didn't have an example of that. But what that means is if you have two answer choices left and they both deal with the information in the middle of the paragraph, they're both equally not good, but you have to choose one. So you look at the main sentence in the question, and that helps you determine which one is more focused on the main idea. But since we're not talking about it, it's a bit awkward to talk about it generally. So don't worry about it too much. So if you don't understand, know that this is a hard question. 14 is not easy. It takes comprehension, focus, and time. It's a much easier question for masters, right? Because you'll be able to do everything I did and you'll be able to choose your answers without even understanding all the answer choices, right? Because we chose E without even analyzing it. So I also want to give you this piece of advice. Stop focusing on the hardest and master the easiest. All the time I get tutoring sessions with students in the speaking who say 1 and 2 are my hardest questions. So I say, okay, let's focus on 3, 4, 5, and 6. You know, if you focus on the hardest, you're going to improve it a little bit. It takes a huge amount of time. Mastery is what gets you points, so master the easiest. And all the time we get emails from students and discussions asking about, I got a I got a 17 on the reading. I really need help with the summary question. The summary question is 2 points. You really need help with the details and the vocabs because that makes up about, I don't know, I forget the math, but like 60 to 80% of your score, approximately 60 to 75. So focus on that. Master your 3-step reading program. I can't say it enough. All of you are capable of being in my position as a teacher with this reading if you followed step 1, 2, and 3 of your program carefully enough. Really, you are. But I did this to kind of help you get along the way. And last, review one reading 50 times. Review one reading 50 times. All right, everybody. So that's it. So let me ask you, what did you think about the series, this reading series? Can you please give me a couple of your comments? On a scale of 1 to 10, in 10 being you have reached the next level of reading mastery, what would you rate it? Okay, getting a lot of different answers. Good, good. Getting a lot of 10s, a couple of you 8s, few of you 6s, nobody's below 5. And think about that, everybody. That's excellent. What do you think, if you're a 6, what do you think that means that some people think it's a 10? What do you think it means, everybody? Honestly, let's talk about that just for a moment. If some people say, let's say you're in a classroom, and I give the question, we hope that everybody's honest. Let's assume everybody is 100% honest. And 50%, no, let's say like 80% of the people say 10 out of 10, and 20% of the people say 6 out of 10. What does that mean? What does that mean? Can anybody try? Well, a couple of you are giving some good comments, but what I believe that means personally is one of two things. One, the teaching style and methodology didn't follow, which I think is rare, or else we wouldn't have that majority, but it means we're in the learning process. So I believe everybody who says 6, 7, 8, 9, if they watch this video 2 or 3 more times, will say 10. Because I believe what happened is that we missed a couple of things because of comprehension. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that 100% of every student of every classroom for every situation is possible of loving it. But I do want you to understand if this wasn't like excellent, then I really do want you to review it. Because, nothing is perfect, but it's really going to help. Does that make sense, everybody? Good, good, good. So, I want to ask another question. What would you say to others about this class? Because as you know, this is a new webinar series that we're offering. This is a new medium. Those of you who've been students with me for several months or with Noteful know this is the first time we've ever had anything quite like this. What would you say to others? All right. Well, I have to say thank you to this. Diego says I'm advertising it to everybody. I hope you are all too. And this I really like. Hong says it opened my eyes. That was the whole goal. Now, why am I talking to you? So everybody here is, in my mind, a strong, dedicated, focused, intelligent, professional student. You've gone through, basically most of you, 3 webinars. You've stayed focused. This is not easy, and it's Saturday morning. So you guys are serious. You guys are important, right? I know a lot of you here, Hong, Hadil, Hanan, many names that I can go through. What I want you to understand is that your feedback is important. It's tough to always try to hit every student, but this is one of the ways that we're trying to do that. So right now I want to open it up to question and answer time. So any question you have, go ahead and pose it now with respect to the TOEFL, Noteful, your studies, and I'll do my best to answer it. We'll spend not too long on it, but a little bit of time. So go ahead and post your questions, everybody. We have a lot. Okay, so I have a quick question from Arash who asks, can I send my writings to you? Absolutely. You can send them to studenthelp@noteful.com, but for the best help, I really do believe that it's most important for you to register for a writing review because that's where you'll get the most help. And also, we get anywhere, I don't know, some weeks we get 1,000, some weeks we get more emails. So it's tough for us to give everybody free feedback, but we usually do. So that guarantees that you'll get some. This is actually a good point, pretty much. So Yanghui at, oh no, not, I'm not sure if it was Yanghui. Okay, so a student asks controversy. Then the direct word whether will be the first concern to the answer. Kind of. Anything that illustrates that there's like a back and forth, like whether or I can't think of another word, but yeah, that's a very good one. So whenever you have something like that, that can help clue you in on the answer. Can I upload my speaking? So Anila, yes, of course. If you just have the reading program, register for the speaking program with review. That way you have the opportunity to upload your speaking recordings and get some very powerful detailed feedback. So I'm keep looking at. Pratik asks, when is the next speaking series? Soon. Actually, let me go ahead and give everybody a poll, okay? So